Before I want to close a minute and just obviously say something about this film, La Commune. I just want to say one other thing about the role of activists and those protesting globalization today, which is, of course, amazing and marvelous that this is happening. However, we should not overlook the fact that amongst the protests there is very, very little towards or concerning the use of the mass audiovisual media. There we are at a state, we're like 50 years behind with that one, really. And I've noticed, and I've in fact documented in my own way over the last 20 years, the resistance by many activist groups towards criticizing the mass media. This is a very, very serious, confusing, complex, and real phenomenon. The mass media is always set aside. Maybe it's because of our traditional relationship to the Hollywood we love or to our favorite television show. Who knows what's involved here? It is also because many activists, at least I'm not so sure now, but certainly in recent years, like some of the global peace movements, used television to convey their alternative message. They used the system. But of course they used exactly the same manipulative system. They used the monoform. And so nothing changed. I think that the historical resistance by many activists to actually challenging the mass audiovisual media is a very serious problem. And my personal belief is that until this subject is pulled up level with the other subjects being protested, the other problems being protested, I genuinely do not believe that the anti-globalization protest will ever reach its true fruition. If we leave the cinema and television and the radio in the present position they're in, we will never get there. I made La Commune to raise these questions, mixed in, of course, with the questions of personal commitment, the theme of the Paris Commune itself, and what I'm hoping is that what people can do, what you can do, is to use this film as a resource and a tool. Some people, perhaps many people, find it very bizarre that it's so long. Please, see this length as a resource, not a threat, not a personal idiosyncrasy. See it as a resource, as a challenge. It doesn't mean that all alternative films have to be 5 hours long. Far from it. This one is for very real reasons, and the experience of seeing it, and of, if you want, of having the patience to swim in a fluid-like way through the process of this film, I believe is something that can be seen in a very positive and innovative way, because it is totally changing the relationship between the audience, the traditional relationship between the audience and the spectator. La Commune, the film, has a very, very particular form, a language form. It has the monoform in some parts, and for that certainly I can be criticized. And the film certainly has faults, because it's also hierarchical, but those are there to be debated. But it has these very, very long plans séquences, as they're called in French, the sequences, long sequences, where I didn't often know what was going to happen, and neither sometimes did the cast, but it offered space for people to say what they wanted, and for change. And this idea is an idea of generosity, with which the majority of the mass media is totally unfamiliar, because they don't want spontaneous reflection. They want instant, pre-packaged response from people. That's what the monoform is about. La Commune also has a very, very complex and important process, both with the audience through its form and its content, but also with the people in it, who probably are better called participants rather than actors, who worked in a very, very, who put an enormous amount of themselves into the film. And that's another tremendous example of generosity from this film is what the people in it give of themselves, knowing that they're exposing themselves in a sense publicly on the screen. I think there's if you are prepared to work with this film, it can be an amazing tool and a resource for not just for deconstructing the mass audiovisual media, but as just one of many, alternative vision of what television could have become were it not prevented 30 years ago by the thugs ruling it. Well, I'll just start by saying there are three sort of ways, I suppose, of approaching how you can work with this film. Well, there's many ways, but I guess hierarchically I'll begin with one thing I can offer. I've done some teaching and discussion notes here, which will shortly be in French. And so if teachers or groups working with the film would like to see some of my ideas about questions that could be raised in a discussion, they're just questions, that is there if you find that of any help. But as I stress in these notes, probably all they can do is to help maybe break the ice and start. And the most important information and ideas will come from the debate process. Some of the participants in the film formed themselves into a group called Rebond pour la Commune. Rebond, or rebound, it's a little difficult to translate into English, so I'll keep the French word rebond for the Commune, because they were very encouraged and interested by the process in making the film, which began well before the film started and continued during the film. And then the Rebonders, as we call them, or they call themselves, continued this process of meeting, and they now have formed an association in France, and they are there to help you with ideas, or just to help you to get going, not just to show this film. That's not the ultimate point. The point is to move far beyond La Commune, to trying to find different ways to energize or re-energize or reinvent the civic process, debate where we have disagreements, but real citizen participation in history. I don't know if we'll ever be fortunate enough to avoid finally having to sit in a theme park to globalization. I somewhat doubt that we'll be able, but let's at least hope that the theme park will be able to be constructed pretty soon, within the next year or so, with your help. I'll be sort of sitting on, or somebody else actually, hopefully not me, will be sitting on top of a television set eating a bag of chips, or actually preferably not eating a bag of chips, and looking out at the water, because we've got to just really, we have to break out of this passive mode that the mass media has put us into, and unfortunately that so much of the education system, which has become deeply complicitous with the media now in encouraging the lack of debate, the passive acceptance of the media popular culture, as though there is nothing else. And there's a whole world of alternatives and a whole world of alternative processes. Well, I'll stop. I'm sorry about the monologue, but I really hope you'll dissolve my monologue in your debate. So I'll say goodbye and thank you very much for your help and your work with the film.